Good afternoon. I'm Mary Andersen, MGP Andersen, and I'm a visual artist. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my process and about the Andy Warhol Foundation versus Goldsmith ruling and how I feel about it as an artist, as a working artist. Most of you are familiar with the ruling, but to review, Goldsmith took her photo of Prince in 1981. In 1984, it was licensed to Warhol to use as a reference to illustrate the feature Purple Fame in Vanity Fair. Warhol then used that photo to make 12 silkscreen paintings, 2 screen prints on paper, and 2 drawings without asking or notifying Goldsmith. One of these, Orange Prince, was used as a cover for a commemorative magazine after Prince died in 2016. Despite licensing the photograph to Warhol in 1984 and being given co-credit in Vanity Fair for that work, Goldsmith said she knew nothing about Warhol's reworking of her photo until she saw the commemorative cover. She threatened to sue the Andy Warhol Foundation, so they sued her, and away it went through the courts. In ruling for her, the Supreme Court said minor alterations to a copyrighted work are not transformative under fair use where altered work was used commercially for a substantially similar purpose. Since Orange Prince was used to illustrate a story, just as Goldsmith's original photo was, its use was ruled copyright infringement. But Orange Prince wasn't originally made to illustrate a story. It was made to tell a story and hang on museum walls. In this capacity, the Andy Warhol Foundation owned it entirely, but the same work, when placed in a magazine, became Goldsmith's too. This split makes me uneasy, because what can be scaled down can be scaled up, and fear of copyright infringement may make investors, museums, institutions, and collections nervous. And that makes artists nervous. Since ancient times, artists have used the known to launch into the unknown. Now we'll have to ask if the purpose of the new work is substantially the same as the original, and it would be if I was borrowing from another painting. And we'll have to be able to prove that any changes we make are transformational. And just what does that mean? A 10% change, 16% change, 60% change? And what if I need the exact image to add depth to my work? Do I stop everything to ask for permission? How much do I pay for its use? Warhol did okay, but most artists are broke. My guess is that we'll skip the whole thing and stick to what we know, which is a shame, because that's not an artist's job. And that's not how we work. There's no way to know what I'll do with someone else's photo until I'm deep into the work. Artists like me don't plan paintings. Paintings happen to us. They are events. The best way to explain this is to see my process. While I paint, I'm a cartoon character standing in the sky. If I stop to think about what I'm doing, I'll fall. So I don't think, I act, and I let my muse hold me up. All she asks in return is access to all things human. Anyway, that's my cousin John up on the jungle gym. As I worked, he became God, looking down on the world. God's got his eye on Eve, the pink triangle. She's doing what's expected, but Adam's leaving. Many of my paintings deal with women being caught or trapped. I think this is because my mother had 10 children and my father was a difficult man. Most of the reference photos you'll be seeing today are not copyrighted. My purpose in using them is to demonstrate how a purely descriptive photo, such as Goldsmith's, becomes art, and also how wide and varied an artist's sources need to be. But what if they were copyrighted? As we go forward, ask yourself if resemblance is the only criteria for copyright infringement? Does it matter that Cousin John becomes God? March and April 2020. Thousands dying all over the world and nothing we could do about it. My studio is in a large building with a lot of other studios, and I was afraid to go in. But by May, I was losing my mind, so I went in and painted this furiously in a couple of sessions. It's about being stuck, vulnerable, afraid, and not knowing what's going to happen next. But he's slightly green because he's growing from the experience. My grandfather was a cement contractor, and here he is in San Carlos in 1946. The blurry snapshot became a commentary on paving the road to Armageddon. If they would only look up and see where they're going, but they're too busy doing their job. You can barely see what's going on in this photo. I look for that so I'm not tempted to copy. My dad took this on Guam in World War II, and I like the interaction between the soldiers and nurses. I had a hard time making it pop. It only started to work when I used a razor blade to apply paint. I found this in a tattered album at the Alameda Flea Market. Her whole life was in it. She belonged to the Deaf Club, had a daughter, went to the World's Fair, vacationed in LA, lived in San Francisco. I even have her address on Market Street. I wanted the feeling of far away, of another time and place. Notice the telephone poles. I often leave my charcoal underdrawing showing in places because it shows my process and reminds the viewer that a painting is just hundreds and hundreds of choices. Here's another photo from the album. I wondered about the relationship between them. Are they more than friends? What's upstairs? Why are they dressed up? Where are they going? I tried everything to find out. Then I put my hand into titanium white and placed it on the canvas, and it worked. So I think they were very close. This is Fort Funston at dawn. I'd been throwing the ball for my dog. The woman is from the newspaper. She's just reached asylum after crossing the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. So why did I put them together? Sometimes you're not sure where you're standing, and you have to drop down to check. Here I was caught by the relationship between the sisters. The girl in the back is very tense. She'd rather be anywhere else, but she's going along with it. I come from a family that never talked about anything important. It was all bottled up. So I think that's why I painted it. It only worked when I crossed out her face. This one is about dreaming. But what's she dreaming about? Another woman, another way of being, of not being? I don't know, but I like the variety of paint, and I like the way she dissolves from the feet up. This is Market Street at 3 a.m. That time of night is almost a separate place. Maybe that's the silence, but that's what I wanted here. Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland becomes a meditation on going for it in life. You can huddle in the back or stick up your hands and enjoy the ride. I picked this photo because there's so much space to play with. There are many, many layers of paint. When my husband looked at it, he saw the Grim Reaper. I didn't know what he meant, but if you look behind her, you'll see him there with his sword, his scythe, and his shroud. Deep color, uncertain edges, anxiety, bravery. Is she going through the door? And what's behind it? The wind is blowing and she's hemmed in by zigzags. What are they? This painting is about going for it, dancing with the green man of folklore, rebirth, new life. The alternative is being stuck without agency, like the couple behind them. A lot of women, especially in the past, married to get out of the house. They went from the frying pan to the fire. So what's blocking the doorway? And look at the glasses on the table. Nothing is safe. Nothing is stable. Is that a skull up in the corner? I don't think she's getting out of there. This is a photo of my mom, pregnant again. She has no hand because she had no agency. One day, standing near the Target toy department, I heard a man say to his daughter, "Nothing today, Miracle." So I scratched it on the wall behind her because she did so much with so little. I have 6 brothers, 2 sons, and I read the newspaper. This painting is about being a young man in today's world. He's separated from the car he wants. A breast erupts from the ground. So many expectations and no way to achieve them. His pain is palpable. Will he draw his gun? I painted this at a particularly difficult time in my life, but you don't need me to tell you that. It's crazy that human beings can turn our feelings into objects and then use them to connect. Anyway, the figure in front is taken from a photo of Rasputin after they fished him out from under the ice. I stopped the documentary I was watching on my iPad and traced it because his frozen body was the shape of my pain. This painting is about being separate, alone, and I painted it with a razor blade. So I started with my muse, and here she is, holding me up, holding everyone up, with a strong arm and good advice. I was painting along, and she just showed up. You've got to be ready for anything. It's funny, someone saw this painting and commented on the number 1 in her neck. But I had never seen it before, but it was the first thing he saw. So, sometimes you're the last to know. Anyway, so far my paintings have been based on personal photos. This one is from a book found on a sidewalk. It's by a professional photographer, so now we're in Andy Warhol, first Goldsmith. I blocked it in, but I couldn't get it to work. So I filled it in, then I just painted it over in disgust. So then I sanded it down. I added light gray, then pink, then a blue paint stick, finally orange and gold, but nothing worked, and I was sure that I'd lost it. Then I watched a video of Jean-Michel Basquiat painting. He was so sure, so brave, and he always put the right thing in the right place. And I finished it. But after the ruling, fear of copyright infringement would have kept me from starting this painting. Even though the finished product looks nothing like the photo, you've seen how my paintings evolve. I never know how they'll end up, so I wouldn't have wanted to put in weeks of work only to worry that the painting was too close to the original photo, especially since the ruling is so vague that I wouldn't know that I'd crossed that line until I got sued. Making art is tricky. You really have to trust your muse. I find inspiration in anything and everything. Old photos, the newspaper, a postcard, documentary, book, even the Target toy department. I would like to be able to keep that latitude without breaking the law, and so would my collectors. So I agree with Justices Kagan and Roberts that this decision will stifle creativity of every sort. Thank you so much for your attention. I very much enjoyed sharing my work and thoughts with you. Very much.